Hello and welcome to the Men's Lifeline Academy, where we bring on stellar men who have a story to share, men who, like you, went through trials and tribulations. And today I am honored to have Dr. Dustin Burnham. He's the leader of the Present Fathers community, and he's going to help us learn how to be a present father. I'm not a father yet. I'm going to plan to be one in the future, so I can't wait to learn from Dustin today. Dustin, welcome to the podcast, man.
Zach, thanks for having me. And you're right. The best time to learn about being a dad is before you have kids. Because if you're trying to figure it out right in the middle of it, it's going to be a lot tougher. So yeah, do the research now. Get some ideas of how you want your style to be, what kind of dad you want to be, and you're going to have a lot of success.
Well, right now I'm raising a puppy right now for the first time, and it feels like a child. I swear, I don't know if anyone can relate this, but I've done the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and as soon as I get to 2, that dog's already down.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. And, it's funny when children are young, a lot of it is similar to training a dog. Obviously, as we get older, our brains are a little bigger than a dog's. But yeah, when, those first couple of years, there's a lot of striking similarities in terms of emotional regulation, especially. If you yell at a puppy or if you hit the puppy or something like that, they'll have really bad effects. It won't be a happy dog later in life. And, human children work, a lot of the same way younger in life. We learn more in our first 5 years than we'll learn for the next 95 combined, right? A lot about emotional regulation, about trust, about bonding, and those things adults really struggle with later in life if their parents put them through some real challenges when they were younger, like abandonment or leaving them alone for long periods of time, or a lot of emotional volatility. All those kinds of things set adults up later for more challenges in terms of attachment and having healthy relationships with other people.
Well said and well spoken. So, Dustin, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an anesthesiologist assistant. So not a doctor. I work under other doctors. So I'm in the operating room every day, putting tubes in people and helping them breathe, making sure their circulation is good, keeping them asleep and comfortable, and then more importantly, waking them up from the procedures to make sure that they do well. So I've been married to my wife for 11 years now. We have an anniversary coming up. And we have two beautiful children. My daughter is about 6 months old, and my son is 5. Fun story, I just taught him to ride his bike for the first time. It was a huge accomplishment. I was really proud of him, and the sense of freedom and the amount of new exposure that has just opened up to him is just incredible. So seeing that was bittersweet in some ways, right? Because, as these milestones occur, you want it to happen, but at the same time, you realize he's growing up and all these things that are happening, you only have so much time to really soak it up and enjoy it. So it was really kind of a special moment watching him, take off on his own on his bike. That was really cool.
Oh man, that's got to be such a special moment seeing them ride. How long did it take him to kind of get on his own? Because I know that when you're first riding, you don't have that balance and you're just going, you're teetering from side to side, and it's going to be some accidents.
Yeah, he took a solid 6 months. He was on a scooter for a while. So for any parents having trouble teaching their kids to ride a bike, find something else they can balance on. And a lot of kids do better with that first before the initial bike ride. So we got a scooter and he was able to, kind of kick on that and balance with that for a little bit, got comfortable with it. I got him started, which I'll tell you what, that's a great workout because you're sprinting at top speed trying to, get going with him. And then he would kind of crash and fall, didn't know how to stop himself. Eventually, after falling a few times, he figured out how to fall into the grass as opposed to scraping up his knee, on the sidewalk. And then he figured out how to stop himself properly. And then he figured it out on his own, how to lean his bike to the side, get the pedals going, and actually get started on his own. So we rode together to his daycare over 2 miles there and then 2 miles back. And he did great. It was terrifying the whole time, but he made it. His classmates, I don't think any of them know how to ride a bike. So hopefully he's kind of starting a chain reaction where they're going to learn. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I figured there'd be a couple more precocious kids who at age 4 figured it out. But at least in his group, more kids, they'll ride golf carts or they'll have little motorized, things that they do. There's not as much traditional bike riding, at least at that age, for whatever reason. So, which is really a shame. I think there's really something to be said for just riding a bike. It's old school. It's great exercise. And, if your motor dies, it doesn't matter, because you could just keep pedaling. So anyway, that's a really important thing for me. I was about that age when I got started, and I hope it's a big deal for him too and gives him a real sense of freedom.
Absolutely. I mean, like you just said, if you're on a motorbike and you don't know how to work the pedals, kind of luck right there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, for sure. So it's and so I was 6 years old when I started riding my bike with friends, but without any adult supervision. All through
Wow.
kindergarten, I had people that helped me, but then it was only about a mile and a half. I was pretty lucky that my elementary school was pretty close to where I grew up, and it was such a powerful sense of autonomy and freedom that we developed at a very young age that then led into getting a paper route and getting jobs relatively early in life, age 12, 13, and
Mhm.
just developing all these skills and sense of freedom and autonomy that I think a lot of kids don't have today, and they struggle because of it. So I'm so happy that I lived in a time where it was very normal for kids to kind of go do their own thing. And for a lot of kids, I don't think that exists anymore. And there's a obviously, you don't want to neglect your children, right? You don't want to
Right.
send kids into an environment where they're not safe. That's not okay. But there was a time when it was more normal for pretty young kids, 6, 7 years old, in groups to ride bikes together, to perform activities together, and they didn't necessarily need a ton of direct adult supervision. And it not only did it free the parents up to do other things, for periods of time that they wanted to, but it also taught them how to be adults sooner and how to take on challenges and be comfortable with new things. So it seems like I'm, making a mountain out of a molehill, but learning to ride a bike very early, I think directly leads to getting a job earlier, moving out of the house, all these key elements of what it means to become an adult in America that I think a lot of people have lost. And then you end up with that classic 30-year-old kid playing video games in the basement, which is fine sometimes, but it's maybe not the ideal that most parents are striving for.
Yeah, I would say most parents, I mean, for those who've seen the movie Failure to Launch, which
Great.
his
Yeah.
whole
Yeah. Great
his
example.
whole job was basically how to get these guys who are in their 30s to grow up a little bit, go from that man child to a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then learning the step process that they can do things, that they can overcome those setbacks that happen in life that let them stuck. And I'm actually in the midst right now. I just started like 2 nights ago, but the boy crisis.
Yep. Okay.
So I forget who it's by. I just literally started reading it, and let's see. And it's kind of talking about that, like what led up to like men not having as much ambition or feeling it's okay to have some drive.
Yeah, there's a whole constellation of issues that are associated with it, but it is definitely a problem in America, at least unique
Yes.
to men. We're seeing women absolutely dominating men, which is not a terrible thing. I mean, ideally,
Oh.
it'd be closer to 50-50, but when you're seeing like 65% of college graduates, law school graduates, medical doctors, all of these, are now women, you end up with a lot of men who maybe feel a little bit lost and don't have that drive to push like they used to. And so why is that happening? There's a lot of interesting reasons, behind it. And I'm sure the boy crisis gets into it. A couple that I've definitely seen is the way that education works. You
Hmm.
remember the movie Fight Club?
Yes.
He had this kind of interesting line where he said, "We're a generation of men raised by women," and so it's kind of it's tough for us to find that traditional role of masculinity and what it means to be a man and all these things, and that's really important for guys. There has to be that sense of identity and manhood, because when you don't have that, a lot of that desire to achieve, that desire to meet a wife, have kids, all these things that are kind of a part of what it means traditionally to be a man, if you don't have that, you're less likely to kind of achieve those goals. And as a very young man, that doesn't really affect you as much. If you're 22, 25, you're traveling, finding yourself, no big deal. You start hitting 35, 40, 45, and you see a lot of kind of lost men who
Hmm.
never quite hit those milestones, didn't realize how important they were, and then all of a sudden they're in a position where they may feel like it's too late to hit those. And it's never too late, right? You can always do it. I mean, it's there's always an opportunity to find that, but it's definitely harder. If you are able to kind of hit some of these milestones in a more reasonable period of time, especially with your tribe. Let's
Right.
say your best friends growing up, well, now they're getting great jobs and they're having kids and they're doing these things, and you're not, you're going to kind of fall apart, and you won't necessarily have those same connections that you will. So it's a really interesting issue watching this play out in real time in America.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, how have you seen that played out with leading the present fathers in that community and everything you're doing with your own podcast of trying to develop that dialogue of trying to figure out, what's going on from everyone's different perspective?
I think the biggest issue for men who truly feel lost is a lack of community.
Hmm.
So you don't have to be perfectly present. You don't have to, put your cell phone in a box 23 hours a day and, constantly play with your children and be this perfect super dad, right? But you do need to have a community of other dads who you can talk to and run ideas by and talk about, man, I had a tough day with my wife. Let me talk about this. You can't bottle that stuff up. You have to have people that you can talk to and that can empathize with you and truly understand where you're coming from. Because without that tribe, you're absolutely going to feel lost. No man is an island. And having children is increasingly difficult just with all the expectations and demands that are placed on parents now. And so if you don't have other men to share those burdens with, you're absolutely going to struggle. And we have a loneliness epidemic in this country right now. There's 50% of men don't have a single good friend, that they can call. They're polled and
Right.
they say, who's your best friend? And say, I don't really have a friend. So I have some acquaintances at work, but I don't necessarily have a guy that I would say is my bestie, that I can just call and, have a great conversation with. And that's a real struggle for a lot of men. There's nothing healthy or noble about isolation. We are not meant to be isolated. I mean, humans without other humans are basically just naked apes. We're pretty useless, right? But when we get together, we're powerful and we're strong and we're healthy and we're happy. And so that community is the most essential thing that I feel like most dads are missing. And the ones I know that are really struggling haven't been able to cultivate that community for whatever reason. They've maybe gotten, they had a great job opportunity, so they moved away from their family,
Hmm.
and then their friends all moved away. And now all of a sudden, their only friend is their wife, and, they have a couple kids and they don't necessarily have anyone else to talk to, and that's not a recipe for success. You absolutely, it doesn't have to be your neighbor. You can make a community online, but you have to have that community, and that's where we're really struggling today as men.
Yeah, they even say though. I know there was even some studies coming out. Even if you have a community online, it's still not the same as if you can meet up with someone like in person. Again,
I,
something's better than nothing. It's just still like that other side of it is like how well do you really know the person, even though you might meet up with them like once a week. How well do you really know them, and how much are they willing to share their struggles as you do life together through a virtual sense, which is something I never thought would take off so early. I know it's
mhm.
2025, but still, it feels like it's still young.
I would draw parallels to online dating. I consider
That's
myself
fair.
lucky. I met my wife before online dating was a big thing. I remember a couple of my friends mentioned being on eHarmony. I was like, that's weird. And then all of a sudden, everyone meets online, kind of thing. But the goal of online dating is not to just message people, right? The goal is to eventually meet up with them and then
Right.
go on a date and then maybe get married or whatever it is you want to do. And so, friendship, I think, is, kind of the same way. Like your goal should be to meet up and have those face to face in-person interactions, and it's not any different in that sense. So a lot of these online communities, the best thing that comes out of them is that people actually do get together in person. It doesn't have to be every day, but if you
Right.
meet up once a year, whatever it is, with your friends, that really strengthens the friendship and deepens it in a lot of special ways. So you're right, online communities can be absolutely fantastic. They're great ways to meet people, but if they're your only source of social interaction, you're right, it's not the same. And so with so many of us working from home and not necessarily seeing, a lot of people don't really see many people. They might see one or two people throughout the day. In some ways, I'll admit I do find it annoying sometimes. We have kind of tight halls in the hospital, so I'm kind of bumping into people. I'm constantly, I meet 1,000 people a day, right? Just
Oh.
constantly, hello, hello, talking to them.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's wonderful, because I have all these in-person interactions, and I'm talking constantly. It's a very healthy thing, for me, especially. I don't do well with isolation and loneliness. So having those people around and going to an actual place to work is great. So, for those of you who do work from home and don't necessarily see that many people, you got to find a way to get to the park, go meet up with as many friends as possible. Cause we're not meant to sit in a cold cubicle all day and, check email,
I mean, I guess
scroll,
that's an interesting
scroll
question. How do you
Instagram.
do that when everyone's kind of self-isolating in a way? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you meet the people with? So if everyone's around your age group is self-isolating. How do you get a bunch of people to kind of together? I know
It's a
people
real
are kind
issue.
of venturing out, especially depending on how many people are in your city, whether you're in a township, a small town, or even like the city. I know maybe the city might be a little bit easier just because there's so many people and they're always moving about.
Yeah, I think, the automobile, one of the odd unintended consequences of it is that it isolated us so much, right? Because now you're in a car alone and you drive 30 to 45 minutes and you're angry, right? You're in traffic and someone cuts you off. If you were walking down the street, it'd be very rare that someone like jumped ahead of you and you're going to be angry with them. I can't think of a
Right.
time I've ever like been walking in a city and someone like buzzed ahead of me and I was like, I'm going to kill this guy, right? But like that happens all the time in the car. I'm like, I can't believe this guy, I'm like raging in the car. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? This is crazy. So by being isolated and by being in these little boxes and going really fast and potentially, obviously, if someone smacks into you on the street, no big deal. If they hit you with a car, it's dangerous. They might hurt
Right.
you. So, some of that rage is understandable, especially in Florida. Oh my gosh, Florida people, become better drivers. Go get some testing, like do something. Y'all are terrible drivers. It's so annoying.
I can vouch for that because I've been to Florida plenty of times.
Yeah.
And I'll be hearing about an accident on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
So where I'm at, so you would hear about an accident. Chance of you seeing it, not likely. Florida,
Sure.
You hear about 5 of them on the radio, you're going to see all 5.
Isn't that crazy? So it's sketch driving in Florida. So, you go to countries in Europe and the cities are more walkable. There's more opportunities to just bump into people and have conversations, to just make eye contact, right? Whereas if you're isolated and alone, that doesn't happen. So, as far as making sure that you're getting into those communities, you've got to find your tribe. Find something you're really excited about. If you're passionate and your hobby is, a sport or an activity, whatever it is, get together, find those people that have the same interests and find ways to get connected into those communities, and your life will absolutely improve dramatically. And you might not like some of them, but that's okay. If you're in a group of 10 people and you only like 2 of them, that's still better than not being in any kind of group, because at least you have those people. You'll find your tribe and you'll be a much better person for it. And those people you don't like initially, you might find ways to like more, and by working out your difficulties together, that makes you a better person as well.
I think that's another good point too, is actually being okay with people not liking you, and you maybe not vibe with them a little bit. And even if you tried working something out, because at least the second thing, I was like, well, they offended me, so now I'm not going to talk to them anymore. It's kind of become like a recent trend in a way. It's like, oh, we had a disagreement. Well, screw them. I'm not going to go talk to them because, they made me upset or mad.
That's a really great point, Zach. There's this like, oh, this person is toxic. Right. So cut the toxic energy out of your life and don't talk to those people. There's something to that. So, I mean, there's psychopathic people out there. Like if someone constantly harms you, you've got to have boundaries. You've got to cut them out of their life.
Correct.
Is the fact that someone said something rude to you or disagreed with you toxic energy that you need to cut out of your life? Absolutely not. In fact, you probably need more of that, because you're in a bubble of an algorithm that just feeds you what you want, which has only gotten worse with AI, right? I don't know how much you've used AI systems, but they are sycophants. They absolutely tell you that whatever you think is brilliant, and you have to purposely demand that it disagree with you, or it'll tell you that everything you say is brilliant, right? So I'll feed it dumb business ideas. I'm like, I'm going to take a poop and put it on a stick and sell it in the street. And it'll be like, that's a great idea. I've never thought. Just idiotic, right? Like I'll just seriously try that. Go into ChatGPT, I'm going to sell poop on a stick, and it will not tell you it's a bad idea. It might be like, I've heard better ideas, but that might work, but it is absolutely not going to tell you, Zach, that's dumb. Don't do that. That's unsanitary. Okay. It's crazy.
I've never done it before, so let's try it out. I'm opening up ChatGPT right now.
Yeah, punch it in, see what it says. Hopefully it's changed, but as there's tons of examples of people who literally just said, I'm gonna sell poop on a stick. It said that was a great idea.
Let's see what happens. Selling poop, a good business idea.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, audience and everyone, bear with me. This is what it says, and I'm gonna say, quote: selling poop can actually be a legitimate and profitable business idea, depending on how it's done and the market you target. It sounds odd, but here are real-world examples of selling feces, so poop, has value. 1. Fecal microbiota transplants, FMT, used to treating
C. diff, yeah. So I've actually done that surgery before, and it does help. That's fair, but you're not going to sell that to someone on the street. It's like this sterile medical procedure.
Okay, I see what it's going from. Then it's like pet waste disposal services, which I have seen ads for. So where people will, hey, call this number, I'll pick up your dog's feces. Manure sales, okay, agriculture. Sketchy or illegal uses. Selling human poop online without medical processing or regulation. Violate health laws. Don't do it. I
Okay, that's
repeat.
good. Thank you, Shed. Okay, that's a win. Yeah. But anyway, so I mean,
Okay, so it's basically like medical or agriculture is what it's going. It's not like, hey, I'm going to take a stick of crap. Here you go. Give it to your friend.
as of 2 weeks ago, they've changed a little bit, but it was literally encouraging you and then would give you a business plan. Here's how much you should charge. It was absurd. So anyway, you have to assume that the first AI algorithms were from places like TikTok that feed you more and more videos that feed into your ideas. If you are a little bit right wing, it's going to swing you very right wing. If you're a little bit left wing, it's going to swing you very left wing. So there's not a lot of reason from social media algorithms to bring people to the center and find common ground. It finds ways to divide people and send them out to the polls. And now you're seeing the same thing with bespoke custom AIs. If you're talking to Croc, ChatGPT, Gemini, it doesn't matter. They're all going to tell you that you're smart, that your ideas are good, and that you don't need to be challenged on your ideas. And so what's the antidote to that? Talking to other people who have different ideas, who will say, that's the dumbest, what are you talking about? It's a terrible idea. And so having a friend in your corner who is willing to be honest with you and say, bro, that's not a good idea. Like you really need to rethink that, is a superpower. Those are the friends you absolutely want to cherish and hang on to, because you need that person in your corner who's going to tell you when you're making a mistake. And a lot of us just don't have that.
No, absolutely. It's one of the notions of don't treat yourself as if you're fragile. Like you can't handle something, right? Because a lot of times people, get that hypervigilance, like you always have to walk on eggshells with. And if you say one wrong thing, it can make them feel so invalidated that they just don't know how to handle it. And because they've been hurt, what has every video ever talked about that gets like 1 million views? Hey, the person's being mean to you. If they're hurting you, just cut them off. And hurting you not meaning emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, meaning they literally just said something that you didn't agree with. So I just want to be clear when I mention that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And knowing the difference between those two is challenging, of course. And what constitutes emotional harassment to one person is wildly different from other people. I grew up in a home where we didn't yell. We consider that a form of verbal violence. Then I have friends who grew up in other areas. They were yelling at each other all the time, but it wasn't like in a toxic way. They're just very loud people. They had 10 kids, and so if you wanted the floor, you had to yell. And so they're naturally kind of yellers. And so for me, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot, but I also get like that's their culture and it's okay. So I don't feel violated by that. I feel like I'm energized almost. I'm like, okay, you're gonna step it up. I'm gonna bring my energy to this as well, and absorb that a little bit. It's really fun, So but again, taking that further where they're now yelling at you in a mean way is a totally different thing. So it's a real challenge finding those boundaries. And sometimes you just have to play it out a few times and recognize like, okay, this is the second, third time this person has legitimately hurt me, and give them a chance though. Be honest with them and say, hey, based on, what's happened here, this is why I need a boundary and I don't feel comfortable with what you've done. Just ghosting someone and, someone who's a friend, you're now not going to talk to them at all because you didn't like their energy or the way they talk to you.
Right.
That's not good advice. If nothing else, it's not going to help them become a better person. Whether it's breaking up with a girlfriend or breaking up with a just a friend or an acquaintance. I think it's a very challenging but valuable experience to at least give them some sort of closure and idea why you're not comfortable having that conversation with them anymore. I think it benefits them as well as you, because now you're more comfortable having a difficult conversation and you're really able to say why you feel the way you do, and that, that it's not okay. I don't know what your thoughts are on, when it's appropriate to just ghost someone versus, really trying to have a reasonable conversation to at least, tell them why it's ending.
No, that's a good point. I mean, if you want to look at if someone's trying to get you to do something wrong or trying to get you into an argument, that's kind of what you look at. Are we trying to have a discussion or are we just going to have a debate? So I'll give you an example. A lot of times on X, people like to get you into crypto. Like that's like the latest thing, right? It's like, oh, why'd you follow me? Oh, you're into stocks and looks kind of cool. It's like, yeah, man, like, are you into crypto? Not really. Dude, you're missing out. Why aren't you into crypto? Just, it's just not my style. I'd rather just focus on other things. and they would go boom, 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 boom with like why you're not into crypto. So for me, it's like, do I want to get more engaged? And again, let me know your thoughts on this. Do I want to get more engagement? Or it's going to be a back and forth where it goes into a debate of trying to prove someone wrong. And we're talking about like a new definition of debate where it's like, I'm going to prove you wrong and I even listen to what you have to say. Versus maybe more of the classical term of debate, which it meant more to produce thought, where people would literally study books and research and come out with things, where I like to call that more of a discussion. So I don't know if you agree with that, disagree with that. Let me know your thoughts, man. Look at it. We're practicing right here.
The threshold is going to be different online than it is for someone in person.
Correct.
So
Well, even
a
in
lot of
person, I mean, I'll get same thing with that with people who with crypto or what have you.
yeah, I think so. And a lot of people disagree with me on this because they think if they get a text, they should respond to that immediately. I
I'll
have a
let you
hierarchy.
go there.
If I'm in person talking to you and I get a call or a text, the person that I'm having the conversation face to face with gets priority. Number one. Second priority to that maybe is a phone call, especially if it's urgent, if it's for my mom, my wife, something like that. I'll pick that up. Third might be a text, and then far down that list, only at your absolute convenience, is then someone on social media. And I think that's healthy to have that as a boundary, right? So if someone is actively trying to sell you something or get you to agree with them, in a sense, it is totally okay to respond slowly or to not necessarily engage back, especially if you have, I mean, I have hundreds to thousands of social media interactions every day. It wouldn't make sense for me to respond to every single one. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And so it's not reasonable to, and I don't have that big of a following. There's people with millions of followers. Of course, it's not reasonable to expect them to engage with every single person. There's just not enough time in the world. And so you have to look at your priorities and your hierarchy and say, okay, is this an opportunity, one, for me to learn, but also now you're not the only, that's what's so cool about social media. When you and I just talk in a room, we're the only two people engaging. But in theory, if you and I are now debating the merits of debating, online, there's a whole thread of conversation that's happening there. And then other people can jump in and talk. And before you know it, you've got 100 people who just maybe learned something, from that. And that's, social media is not all bad. I think there's so many great ways in terms of, distributing ideas, challenging different ideas in really healthy ways. You see so much of that it's really great. And the best people are able to, sometimes take negative comments and then take it another direction and say, based on what you said, here's a new idea that I generated. And I didn't like the way you said that, but I'm glad you said it because it gave me a new idea that was really cool. I've had a lot of experiences like that where someone was like, you're dumb, blah, blah, this. And I'll go, okay, I'm not dumb, but you did make a good point. And I'm glad you said that because I want to modify. Here's what I think now, right? And then somebody else will jump in and go, that's interesting. Actually, I agreed with your original point. This is why I disagree with that. And then, all of a sudden you've got this really fun back and forth, cool conversation. That just doesn't happen, in a pub with just two guys talking, right? You're only going to see that somewhere where there's a marketplace of ideas and where all of these interesting comments and all this dialogue, kind of happens. So it needs to be low priority. I have to be very careful that my children, my wife, those kinds of people get the priority. But then if I do have an opportunity and I'm having conversations, I can then have that conversation. But, it's gotten to the point where, if someone's not respectful, I'm probably not going to respond back. If only because it's not likely that they're having that conversation in good faith and they're willing to learn back, right? So if someone, if I make kind of a hot take, I say, oh, men are falling behind women. And then someone responds with, you're stupid, men are the worst, and it's good that they're falling apart, which I've had plenty of comments like that. And is there any value in responding to that? Maybe, but the ad hominem that it led with makes it so obvious that this person is looking to argue and put down and not to learn along with me that I just, I spent years trying to have those conversations and some of them are valuable and I've turned some of those people into friends, but it was so emotionally exhausting that I don't do it anymore. So it's just not worth having. And it's tough. You want to respond. You're like, oh, I'm going to get this person because they're not right. Don't do it though. You really have to. This is the one consistent piece of advice I see over and over from successful people who spend time on social media is they rabidly protect their mental and emotional health. in that space. Absolutely essential. So one of my favorite guys that I follow, Zuby, new dad, shout out to him, just had his first baby.
Yeah, I saw that.
He made an amazing point, which is that 90% of people who think they want a big social media following actually don't want that, because it would ruin their life, because they would absolutely, most people don't have the emotional and mental fortitude to handle thousands of comments coming in, positive and negative. The positive can be just as problematic as the negative. And so you really have to be a special kind of person to be able to handle all of that information flowing in. And most of us don't want that. I'm almost positive that if I had 1 million followers right now, my mental health would decline significantly, and I'd have to step away from social media. I don't think I'm ready, or equipped to handle that kind of thing. So,
No, that's an interesting point that you made, because most people want to have that instant gratification of the thousands of fans and teammates and friends, however you want to define it as, but you don't fully always recognize what responsibility comes with it. It's like the saying of, you want to have the title but not the work. Would be another way of looking at it. Like, whether it's like a doctor or a chief of medicine or something that, like, wow, it'd be so cool to be that. Think of all the changes I can make. Then you get into that role, and it's like role, and it's just like, that was completely different than what I thought I was hoping for. Which really makes me kind of curious on your earlier point that you made, is how do you handle that when you want to, grow your following, and at the same time, where it's not going to take away from your family? Because like you said, if you're with someone in front of them, that's your sole attention. Because the phones, they make a lot of noises. And there's always that, okay, what kind of text I get? Is it an email? Is it a spam call? Is it an important call? So, like, how do you manage all that yourself with the following you do have? Because you don't just have it. I mean, you have a pretty good sized following of about 14,000.
Yeah, it's not well, I think, is the answer to it. The challenge for me is, if I have a phone within the vicinity, it's kind of like if a television, and everyone's different. Some people can handle it. I can't. If there's a television on, especially if it's loud, it could be the most boring thing about something I have no interest in, but I'm listening to the TV and I'm not paying attention to friends around me. So a lot of my friends will just have the TV kind of blaring in the background. And I'm pretty conscious now about saying, bro, I can't hear anything you're saying. I'm just paying attention. Can we shut the TV off? And they'll laugh and go, okay, ADD, whatever, but they'll shut it off and it's fine. And we have that good conversation. And so it's the same when I'm with my son and I, have my phone around in my pocket, whatever, I'm tempted to like show him, we're reading a book together. Right. And he'll go, oh, let me, what is that? I don't know what that is. I'll go, pictures worth 1,000 words. Let me show you this photo, this video, whatever it is. I try to minimize that, but there are times it's valuable. He's 5 now. I think it's okay to, have that as an added multimedia way of, learning some things. But boy, is it tempting to, when I see those messages and those texts and, oh my gosh, there's people messaging me and I've got to get back to them. There's this opportunity to do this and that, and it just doesn't work for me. I really have to, I'm like an alcoholic for social media, I guess. Like I have to put it in a box away so that it's out of sight, out of mind, and I'm not thinking about it. And that's what's worked for me pretty well, is having phone unfriendly times and then phone friendly times, right? So my goal, as much as possible, is to be phone unfriendly around my wife, my kids. I'm a better person. I'm more present. I enjoy it more. When I'm trying to multitask and I'm like, kind of looking at my phone and I'm with my kid, I'm annoyed with my kid. I'll be 100% honest. Like I'm finding my phone more interesting than my 5-year-old. And, I'm not proud of myself for that. And it doesn't make me happy, but I had to be honest with myself and realize that those are the feelings I have and they're valid. So how do I fix that? How do I make it so that I would rather spend time with my beautiful children, versus like ignoring them so I can respond to trolls on Twitter, right? Like,
Right.
when you go high level and think about it, like, this is crazy, my behavior right now. And so, I recognized from my mom a couple times who was like, bro, what are you doing? I'm like ignoring her. Like, I'm like, oh, nothing.
She's going to get you.
Oh, you know it. Yeah, exactly. So, she's hit me with that plenty of times. My wife, a few times like, hey, it's dinner time. What are you doing? Even my son now will say like, Dad, get off your phone. Right. So, I have enough, thankfully, positive influences in my life where they remind me, whenever I'm not doing a good job of sticking with that, like, hey, it's not that important. If you have a day where you don't get that post in, you don't write that essay you wanted to write, you're not, hitting the numbers you want to hit, whatever it is. I have the luxury that social media is not my job.
Right.
If I lost my account and, had no access to social media anymore, it would not affect my financial well-being in any way. It would hurt my emotional health. I do derive a lot of joy from the conversations that I have with people
Mhm.
online, like yourself. A lot of fun. I've met some incredible people. I've had some great conversations. I've absolutely become a better person from interviewing over 100 amazing dads, on our podcast. It's been incredible. So, has it made me a better person? Yes. Has it added a new layer of complexity and challenges? Yes. And so for me, abstinence is really the only way that makes sense for me to handle social media in a healthy way. And now AI, same thing.
Right.
I have Grok running in the background doing deep research. I got Google VO making me videos in the background, all kinds of stuff. It's kind of cool that the new AI features take like 10 or 15 minutes to cook, because I'll think of a really good idea and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll punch it in real quick. And then I'm not going to see the results of that for 15 or 20 minutes. So I can put it away.
Oh,
And
I
then an
see.
hour or two later, I can come back to it. Yeah. So the new deep research tools, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, whatever it is, they take a long time. They'll research, 300 different websites. They'll synthesize your ideas. It's really cool. It's absolutely
Wow.
wild, some of the stuff that it's come up with, but it takes time. And so, it's not that instant gratification of, let me just Google it real quick and get the answer. This is deep, heavy stuff where I'm like, okay, this is going to take a while to get there. And that makes it a little bit easier to put it away, do my hour that I'm going to do without any digital tech around, and then, go back. And when it's convenient, my daughter's taking a nap, whatever it is, then I can go look at it.
And it's all about working smarter and harder at the same time, where you're finding ways to synthesize that, especially if it's gonna not take away from your family and everything. I mean, especially when you're a kid, and like you say, he's at that age where he's at that, if he's 5, he's at the age where he's seeing you and how do you respond, how do you treat, your wife, your daughter, him, and he's at that crucial age where he's absorbing a lot of information. And he's seeing if he can, in a way, trust you or not. Like, hey, if I say, Dad, put away your phone, are you going to listen to him or not?
And that's a two-way street. I think a
Right.
lot of parents, and this is a hard pill to swallow, but it's true, you have to earn your children's respect.
Yeah.
Just because you're their dad doesn't mean they have to do everything you say. You absolutely have to put that time in. And if you read them stories and you play with them, and he's in this phase where he always wants to like play with like his little sharks and things like that. And I'd rather be out playing baseball with him or playing, whatever it is, but that's what he really wants to do. Dad, come play with me. I want to go be in the playroom. And is that what I want to do right now? No. Like, buddy, can we do something else? But that's what he wants to do. So I'll jump in and I'll give him that time and I'll show him that what matters to him matters to me. And then
Right.
I'll kind of gently, after 10 minutes of, smashing the sharks into the Ninja Turtles, I'll be like, this, let's try something a little different that's going to help you grow and be a little smarter. Let's work on this and that. And so, but he'll do that because I was willing to come to him. And if you jump in as a dad, even as, as a 5-year-old and say, that's stupid, your little plastic toys don't mean anything. Come be a man and really, do something serious. Come play baseball with me. Guess what your son is not going to want to do? He's not going to want to play baseball with you, right? So you've
Yeah.
got to meet them in the middle, give them a little bit. And then I've been so pleasantly surprised by how much attention and time and effort he's given me, especially this year. I took him skiing and he focused for like an hour straight, pizza, French fry, how to get the skis where they need to go.
Right.
Partly, I think he was freezing and terrified, so he had to pay attention. But he did so good. He's a pretty good skier now. It's crazy. He all this biking that we did together, like he went out there and really focused hard, and now he can ride a bike. He's
Nice.
like top of the class in reading, because we spend all this time together, and he's just like really, now there's areas he's struggling too, of course, but he's
Yeah.
really, I'm starting to see the fruits of my labor where I realized like if I wasn't there to do this with him, he would not be thriving like he is. And you want to talk about something that motivates you as a dad to get in there and do more dadding is when your kids are kicking butt and really succeeding. But then the other side of it is it's really hard. You get discouraged easily as a dad when your children don't listen and don't show you that olive branch and come along with you and want to help you. And that's a real struggle for a lot of us because it hits us right in the ego, right? Our 6-year-old child says, Dad, I don't want to go play baseball with you. Well, we don't think he's distracted and just has other things on his mind, we take that personally. We go, oh, he just doesn't like me, or he's defiant, or he's a bad child.
Right.
That's absolutely not what's happening. Your child is not bad. That is your child. They're beautiful. They're awesome. It's just they're not in a good place for that right now. And maybe you haven't earned the right to get them, to that point. So find a way to work on yourself as a dad and earn that right with your kids, and they will absolutely come to you 99% of the time. Some kids have the devil in them, and they, I don't know how to deal with that. Sorry, but 99% of kids are good kids, who just need a little bit of a. You need to come to them, meet them halfway. And I see a lot of dads that don't want to do that because guess what? They have other things they find more fun. They want to go hang out with their friends, or they want to, play around on social media, or whatever it is that they find more interesting than their kids. And your kids know that, and so they're not going to come to you and do the fun things with you unless you put that emotion and time in with them.
No, that's really well said, and taking time to think beyond yourself. Sometimes we can be very selfish, and as John Maxwell says, sometimes you can be a hippo and want to sit in your own filth and not want to go out and do things that benefit you, and you just want to sit and, for lack of better words, have a pity party. Like, oh, my son doesn't want to play baseball with me. Doesn't he know, like, this is like the best time, and everyone would be lucky to have me to throw baseball with them. And so it really takes time to think beyond yourself and understand, are you acting in a stance of immaturity or maturity? And are you trying to build up a relationship, or do you realize that you've been burning a bridge? Because kids, I mean, they're brutal, they're honest, and they'll call you out. And at the same time, they just want your attention. They just want you to know that you care about them. I mean, that's even as adults who can be like grown up children, really. We just want to be liked and appreciated and loved. And so many people, I mean, that's kind of part of that loneliness epidemic and pandemic, if you will. It's all across the world. If you look at all the research and how much depression's on the rise, anxiety's on the rise, everyone, I mean, people are excited for having a robot partner relationship. I mean, look at all the recent movies that are coming out where it's now a robot that's going to be a companion. So someone who's not even real, who's just programmed to like you.
It's going to be a real challenge. We have such incredibly addictive things in our life already. Everything from, alcohol to heroin to,
Right.
pornography. I mean, all these things are already incredibly addictive, paling in comparison to what's coming. You can imagine, as a young boy, you go out and you ask a girl out, you're 16, 17 years old. She rejects you, right? Devastating, absolutely brutal. I already have a boyfriend, or I'm not interested, whatever.
Right.
So, 30 years ago, okay, well, I got rejected. You brush yourself off, your dad comes and says, hey, forget about her. You're going to be okay. And then you move on and you try someone else, and, you get knocked down 20, 25 times, and then you meet the one and she's great. Right. Well, now guess what? You have another option as a boy, right? You can check out from that, and you can take that black pill like so many millions of boys are doing, and they follow the Tates and they go, oh, women are just, trash. They suck.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're just going to use them, and, they're not even worth talking to. So now you go from that to you have an ultra persuasive AI who is going to tell you that you're amazing and you're the best. And it's, some virtual reality situation where it's whatever beautiful woman you could imagine, who's telling you this the whole time. She's never mean to you. She knows your whole history. I shouldn't say she, it knows your whole history. And it thinks all your jokes are funny. You put all that together, there's going to be a lot of people that are very tempted to check out from society and check
Right.
out from, having a relationship with another person, because they can have that instead. And it might feel close enough to real that by the time they realize what they've missed, they're so far gone, into these simulations. And I don't know what the best answer is for that. Unfortunately, I'm still, kind of trying to figure it out. I know with my own children, I'm going to do my best to prepare them to understand what these things really are, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's number one. An AI and a robot is not a girl. It's not a boy. It's a thing.
Right.
Right. And so I really hope that humanoid robots don't have faces. I hope that they remain like a C3PO R2D2, kind of
Right.
situation. They don't look exactly like people. I really hope that we set some firm limits on what is human, versus what is not, because it could be very easy for a lot of people to essentially fall in love with these new ultra persuasive, highly addictive artificial technologies, and that's not good, for anybody. That's not you even had Mark Zuckerberg last month talking about creating these artificial friends. I don't know if you saw this, but basically a bunch of AIs that are designed to cure the loneliness epidemic in humanity by providing a digital friend. That's not the answer.
No.
Because again, as we talked about, these are not friends. These are not real people. They won't challenge you.
Right.
They will just give you exactly what you want, a mirror of what you want. That doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't help you grow. It just kind of, creates a Peter Pan, fantasy kind of situation.
Yeah, I think I saw you post something on that, and I completely agree. And the only way to cure loneliness is honestly just to get out there and be willing to take a risk that might take talking to 100 people to find two good friends. I remember growing up, and one of the wisest things my mom says that I found that to be true is the amount of friends you have would be basically on your fingers. Like friends that you could really trust, and maybe you can take half of that. So you might have like 10 really good friends, but maybe half of that, the ones who you can call at 2, 3 in the morning, or get a text and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. Like, my life just went down to crap. And to always be there and to make friends. Like, I know one of my good friends who moved out of state, or a couple of my good friends moved out of state, and I know he's struggling a lot. So he like reaches out sometimes and like, hey, let's get together at least once a month to just do like a face to face call like this. So it's everywhere, and no matter how many times you try to go out and meet people, it takes a lot of effort to even maintain a friendship and a relationship. So you can really see the seduction, really, of a virtual friend that could be there at your fingertips.
And it will have a place. I think
will.
there is a role for some like adjunct for therapy.
Sure.
Like suicide hotlines are somewhat effective, but like, you have to call a number, you have to go talk. I mean, if there was literally just like an AI all around who was like, hey, I noticed that you're on top of a bridge, like we, don't do that, kind of like, I honestly, I mean, it could save some lives. I think
Right.
there's some like very beneficial
Well,
situations like that.
The purpose of things, it's unfortunate as people we work in extremes, and it's very hard to find the middle way, what therapists would call the middle pathway of life. And that's just saying how to live a balanced life where you have your emotions and you have your thoughts, and you just do the best that you can in life, and you try to have a few good friends, and you try to do good, and not get so stressed about doing everything perfectly, and having the perfect friend, having the perfect job, and just going out there and being willing to get hurt a little bit. As hard as that is, the only way you really learn what you're made of is when things don't go well, just like how your son. I mean, and you had to be behind him. I can't imagine how many times you had to be there reassuring him he can ride a bike when he's falling 10,000 times.
It was really hard. I wanted to just kind of scoop him up and like, but he was determined. He like, he had blood on his knees. He didn't care. He was just like, I want to go again. I was like, all right, let me get you a Band-Aid.
Well, and that's because you instilled that him, just like how his reading level is high, is because you're spending that time. You're being that present father, which you have like the best name for a community is a present father. I'm going to be here through the good, the bad, the ugly. And then it's like, and things on the positive, like the legendary, when you see him actually riding his bike for 2 miles and recognizing that he might be a trend starter, with other kids being like, hey, he's learning how to ride a bike. I want to learn how to ride a bike. And then he can get his own little gang of posses of everyone riding the bike to the daycare.
And those wins absolutely stack.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful sensation. I mean, that being said, that we still have some challenges. Like he still sucks his thumb, right, which drives me crazy because I did the same thing when I was younger, and it messed up my teeth, and I had all these issues later on because of it. So when I see him doing that,
really,
I see a failure in myself, and it triggers me emotionally. I cannot have a balanced reaction to it. I see him, and I have to take a deep breath and say, okay, it's going to be all right, kind of thing. And so I've tried every device imaginable. I've gotten tons of recommendations from people. Nothing has worked. And so, it feels like a huge failure every time I see him do it. It's just a reflex, it's a habit. He's a little nervous and he does it. But, so it's definitely not all sunshine and roses. There's definitely times that it's like, I feel like I can't figure this out and it drives me crazy. And when that's in your own life, it's whatever, you didn't figure it out, you move on. When you can't figure out a way to help your children, and this is a minor thing, right? Being a thumbsucker is not like going to ruin his life by any means, but
well, you mentioned it ruined your teeth though at the same time.
it was really bad. Yeah. Like I've had issues, later on in life, because as children get older, their mouths get more powerful. And so they're able to do more and more damage to their teeth. And, you get sick more often. There's a lot of like, kind of negative side effects to these happening. So
I didn't know thumb sucking past that. I mean, I know it's not good, but I didn't realize it would cause that much of a problematic.
It's pretty problematic. Yeah. But
wow.
Is it more problematic than me yelling at him or having a negative emotional reaction that maybe breaks the trust between us?
Yeah.
Of course not, right? I mean, if I have to get him braces and, he gets sick twice as often, but he still loves and trusts me and he knows that he can come to me and talk to me, okay. I'm more than willing to pay that price. And I've realized that it's more about my ego. I had justified this in my head. I was like, this is about his health and him feeling better and all these problems, whatever. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to fix this. And then I finally, it clicked and I realized this is not about him. This has become about me. And I need to back off and stop. And honestly, he's probably so nervous about me being like, why are you sucking your thumb, that he does it more. Right. So I'm like not helping. I'm actually making the situation worse. So, realizing that was a really important thing for me to, to kind of take that positive step to back off and not be a helicopter parent and, just kind of let him live his life in that department. And I think by taking smaller steps that are less stressful for him, we're going to get him there eventually. But, it's tough.
Oh, I can imagine. And that's the one part is that especially with being a father, a good father at that, is you don't like to see when people suffer. Especially if you can have that personal emotion to it that you've experienced and that got passed down. That habit, that technique to help self-soothe.
Yeah, the goal is definitely to pass down good habits, not bad ones. But of course, that's part of what we do.
I mean, we're going to pass on the good and the bad, right? I mean, if everyone could pass on the good traits, then by your generation, my generation, we'd be all set.
Right. Easy peasy. Yeah. And of course, it's not that easy. One of my favorite quotes from an incredible father, a guy named Nick Freitas, we interviewed him last year. He said that when it comes to children, our goal is not to protect them from every bump and scrape, but to protect them from the scars. And that's a really hard balance as a father. So the goal is to make sure they still get the bumps and scrapes they learn. Sometimes it has to hurt, for you to learn. It has to, stupid should hurt. Right. It's kind of the idea there. And you can't protect your children from every bump and scrape, because then they're not going to learn, how to be better people, how to fix those things. But it is our job to protect them from those scars and recognize those situations where if I allow my child to get into this situation, there's a good chance that something really bad might happen to them. And so, to not let them get into that position. And that's a really tough thing to pull off as a dad. But if you can do it, your kids are going to be absolutely incredible.
Well, I think it's just building that perseverance of seeing a bump and a bump as a scratch and recognizing where it came from. And even if life gives you a few scars, it's there to just serve as a reminder. And hopefully that reminder will be good versus painful. And that's a whole different story when something's painful that just blocks you from living life, right? You ask a girl, like you said, you ask her out, you get denied 20 times, and you start to begin, is it me? And different things like that. So it's learning how to take pain, because I'm reading the book Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, right now. And even that book says you can go through something horrendous and people are okay with pain so long as there's a purpose that's beyond yourself. To help other people, to inspire other people. And that kind of goes along with your mission of having a truthful following versus fame. Kind of like the wealth versus rich. Wealth, knowing that you have people who support you, care about you, and you could be the richest man alive, versus rich and having no one to turn to and just a bunch of shiny things that get you through the day, or just want to get in arguments all day because it's trendy. And that's what people are drawn to. They're drawn to that negative, that controversial message that's contrary to a lot of research and everything.
And I think a lot of us have struggled with understanding wealth beyond just money.
Correct.
Because as men, we love numbers. We like when number go up, right?
Yeah.
So with wealth, you can look at your retirement account and say, "Oh, it's richer now, so I'm winning," right? But you can't necessarily measure as easily your health wealth, right? You just think, "Oh, I'm 30, I'm always going to be healthy, I don't have any problems," but that is absolutely a form of wealth. I mean, Warren Buffett would trade all of his money today with you if he could, to have your health and to have the next 60, 70 years you're going to get
Sure.
that he won't. And so, looking at health, looking at social wealth, right? If you have 10 friends, that's an incredible wealth in terms of happiness and a network you can draw on. And I mean, a lot of people would trade their millions any day to have 10 true friends. So there's all these other kinds of wealth that are harder to measure.
Right.
And I'm just finished reading Sahil Bloom's book, The 5 Types of Wealth, and he talks about that a lot. Really, really nice breakdown, because we all know, okay, you should visit your parents more. It's good to spend time with your friends. Like, these are obvious platitudes. They're well known for a reason. But I think his book is the first time someone tried to put numbers on it and really say, like, this is how your health, the number compares to your financial wealth. This is how your social wealth compares, and so it becomes easier to then say, well, for me, so I took a pay cut over the past couple of years. I'm working less to spend more time with my children and to make sure that, I'm spending time with my family. And that means I don't drive as nice of a car. It means that, we don't take as fancy a trips, all that kind of thing. But it does mean that I'm developing wealth, in other areas. And when I can really put a number on that and say, okay, based on these systems, here, this is worth X amount, this is worth X amount. For men, especially, that really starts to make more sense to us than just these kind of wishy-washy, like, I should spend more time, in prayer or meditating or whatever it is you need to do because it'll improve my mental health a little bit. But what does that mean? Right. Whereas, I could just, work more and put more money into stocks, and now I know that my numbers are going up. And, so it's a great system, whether it's, 5 types of wealth or, some other system that you use to put numbers to your goals and make them time bound. You'll absolutely do a lot better with that than if you're just kind of, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So we all want to have these things that are a little bit better, but if there's no system and no goal and no definite numbers behind it, what can be measured can be managed. And so,
there you go.
So I encourage everyone listening to this to find a way to measure the things that are most important to you, right? Whether it's, you want to make more friends. Obviously, how to measure if having more money. That's an easy one, right? But but the other stuff is
and going deeper. That's what's really fantastic, and it's really
harder to measure
today. What's something you want to leave off with someone who's struggling, who's trying to be a present father, and who just feels like they make mistake after mistake, and no matter what they do, everything just falls apart? What would you like to speak to that person today?
I'll give you 2 that just popped into my head. The first one is bedtime is magic hour. If your child is under, 10 years old, you have this 30 to 45-minute window where they're a little bit sleepy. They're kind of in a good mood. They're ready to go. They just had dinner, they've had a shower, whatever it is. Take that time and don't half-ass it, full ass, the conversation you're having with them. If you pray, get down and pray with them and make sure that they understand the value of that. This is your opportunity. If it's 2 p.m. and my son is running around and I try to get him to pray with me, good luck, right? It's not going to happen. But if I do it at bedtime, not only will he do it with me, he'll then add to it and say, well, I want to say this, to God as well. And so it's this incredible moment and opportunity to leave them with really important messages. Tell them stories, right? Don't just read books, but also create your own story together, that matters. So take advantage of that bedtime, and you will be amazed by how much your relationship grows and how, really special that time is together. And then the other thing is, be forgiving to yourself, because you're not a perfect dad. Nobody is. And you're doing your best. And if you get wrapped up in this, I made a mistake, I'm not perfect, it will spiral and you'll get worse and worse, and you will avoid spending as much time with your children and doing your best to, really be the best dad that you can. So forgive yourself for your mistakes, because you're absolutely going to make them. And, apologize to your children, be honest with them and say, hey, mom and dad aren't perfect. We yelled at each other, whatever it is, but then move past that and continue to make those efforts. And if you don't forgive yourself for your previous mistakes, you won't keep making that efforts. You'll avoid them.
Well said. I think it takes a real man to apologize to man when he makes a mistake, and to take time to find that magic window where you got your kids' attention. Dustin, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. And everyone, my challenge to you is to become a more present person. And if you're a father, definitely be a more present father in your kid's life, and take up that challenge by doing one thing today to be that man, to be that scholar of life, learning how you can just live the best life possible, live it with intention, live it with purpose, turning pain into meaning. And go check out Dustin. Go check out his community, the Present Fathers community, and go follow him on X, and all his socials will be in below. Dustin, thank you for coming on. And if your man needs some help, we have the Men's Lifeline Academy, where we help men live the best lives possible by reaching their full potential, by meeting weekly on Mondays at 7 p.m. EST, so that way we can help you be a scholar of your own life, because you are a scholar and you can live the best life possible. Dustin, thank you for everything today, man.
Thanks for having me, Zach. This was fun.